Hello everyone, welcome back. My name is Rich from DG Mono, and this is Record Collector Confessions. I got married. Yep, there's Mrs. DG Mono now. Yeah, she's my partner in crime when it comes to record collecting and all other things in life. I wanted to make this video about a subject that is related to record collecting. It is a way of thinking, a way of life that I sort of embraced recently that helped me get through a difficult time, and I'm sort of carrying it into the future now, and it's having a very positive effect on my life in a lot of ways, including record collecting. The philosophy is called Wabi-Sabi. I had never heard of it before this YouTube video popped up in my feed from this really cool channel that I've been checking out for a while now that gives me a lot of advice related to mental health and self-improvement kind of stuff. Yeah, so this video just popped up and it said Wabi-Sabi, a Japanese philosophy of perfect imperfection, and I was totally intrigued by this because when I watched this video, it was on a weekend where I was dealing with a lot of emotional challenges. That was a tough weekend, and I watched this video one Sunday morning, and it just really turned things around for me emotionally that day. So what does Wabi-Sabi say? Well, it's totally coincidental it's a Japanese philosophy, and my wife is Japanese. She had never heard of it before. It's basically about embracing imperfection. And for those of you who have followed me here and elsewhere, you probably are aware that I'm a bit of a perfectionist. And it's related to a diagnosed obsessive-compulsive disorder, and sometimes that perfectionism can interfere with my life pretty significantly. After I watched this video, I realized just how much my perfectionism was interfering with my well-being and my mental health and my emotional health on a regular basis. It wasn't really clear to me before that. And, you know, obviously the perfectionism related to wanting my records to be perfect, wanting my equipment to be perfect and to function perfectly, and having this ideal in my mind of how these objects, these things are supposed to be and look. That's obviously related to perfectionism. On a more personal, maybe less obvious level, perfectionism manifests in all kinds of ways in my life and for someone like me. For example, the fact that I'm hard on myself is a manifestation of perfectionism. Historically, I've had a terrible time dealing with the material facet of collecting. And the way that has manifested historically for me has been, you know, like getting a record and like sizing up the jacket and trying to look at it and see how perfect it is and where all the problems are. And then especially like playing the record and trying to figure out like if it's up to my standards, my really high. Probably at one point in time those standards were pretty unrealistic, especially for vinyl. The surface noise of vinyl, all the issues with distortion, non-fill, warping, wow and flutter, whatever, all that stuff, you know what I mean? There's all kinds of, it's a minefield. Vinyl's a minefield, you know? And that posed problems for me for a long time. I don't know, there was a time probably around 2018 where I remember I made the conscious choice to relax a little bit about collecting vinyl and be like, okay, look, vinyl is vinyl, you know? And I think that also coincided with deciding I was gonna like collect CDs and records. So if I really wanted that like super ultra clean, accurate presentation of the music I love, then I'd go for a CD or a digital audio listening experience or something like that. But if I wanted that more tactile, that more organic feeling of vinyl, then I'd go for that. So at that time I made a lot of progress, I think. But the perfectionism still stayed with me, of course. And to this day, you know, I struggle. I struggle with imperfections in my audio equipment and my records. I did figure out at one point in time that the less a record costs me, the less picky I am, and the less likely I am to use that like laser microscopic focus on things, to focus on the details of things and try to pick it apart for what's wrong with it. So that was a big step forward too, just like realizing that I was just maybe financially taking the hobby too seriously. After I watched the video and I started thinking about imperfectionism, right? Embracing imperfection. So the philosophy of Wabi-Sabi, it probably goes without saying that what they're saying is that imperfection should be embraced. And yes, that's what it's saying. It even goes as far as saying imperfection is to be preferred to something that is at least perceived perfect. In my mind, you know, I'm so into math, and you know, there's this whole thing I wrote on my website for one of my Record Collector Confessions articles about Plato and the allegory of the cave, and how there's this realm of forms that that we are not really a part of. We have access to through our minds and our mental capacity, and like, you know, the objects of mathematics and numbers are in that realm of forms. They're permanent and unchanging and eternal. It's kind of like when you look at a record, you have access to the ideal of that record through your mind, and you're wondering how close it is to that ideal. That's sort of like the philosophy of, I guess, Platonism, and how it can influence my perfectionism. For someone like me, when I get a record, I am instantly comparing it to that thing, that idea. And I don't like to admit this, but the truth is that many times my first experience with a record or a piece of equipment or something will be looking for the problems. And I think that that is a unique trait of someone like myself with diagnosed obsessive compulsive disorder. I think that I'm still in that habit of like looking for the imperfections and things, but I think that the place where I may have seen some improvement is that I don't get hung up on them. And, you know, not getting hung up on that stuff and being like, oh yeah, like it becomes an all or nothing thing where like I don't even want to collect records at all. Another key to, I think, embracing imperfection is keeping expectations down. You know, not keeping them so high, not investing so much in these things that are part of our hobby, like specifically these objects that we collect, and relying on them so much for happiness or potential happiness, you know. I think I've set myself up a lot for disappointment and failure with that, and that makes me upset, and that can lead to depression. So, you know, just kind of trying to be a little more removed from the stuff of my hobbies, I think has really helped me to enjoy them more. I think what happens is that when you follow a philosophy of imperfection and embracing imperfection like this, everything in your life kind of just, I think in Fight Club, Edward Norton says like everything in his life got sort of like muted, or like the volume turned down. It's like things are not, and for someone who's OCD, everything can be a little too intense sometimes. So like getting that little bit of space between myself and other things in my life, I think is good. And yeah, that's what it does. It just helps me to relax a little and to accept the way things are, accept that things aren't perfect. I mean, with my music equipment, I think what happened was, as much as I knew my perfectionism was interfering with my enjoying that hobby, I don't think I had really fully internalized the idea that no piece of equipment is ever going to be perfect. And you know, I think for a long time after I had acknowledged that my perfectionism was interfering with my enjoyment of my hobbies, I still persisted to seek perfection. And I think that I turned a big corner now. And I think about this on a daily basis. You know, when I encounter frustrating, difficult situations that are related to recognizing flaws in things, it's good to keep this in mind, and I have it in mind, and it's a good tool to use. So I guess that's it for this week. I hope you enjoyed this discussion, and maybe you got something out of it. And I will definitely see you all next time.